Okay. Oh, hold on. Oops. Alrighty, and welcome to Recovery Revolution Live. My name is Carl, one of the co-hosts for the Recovery Revolution, and today we are being joined by Mr. Brett Morris and Mrs. Ashley Grimes. And what a show we have lined up for you guys today. On today's show, we're going to have Bipolar Barbie, who is an Australian artist, an author, a motivational speaker. She is committed to changing the face of mental health. She aims to abolish the stigma surrounding mental health, leading by example and sharing her own journey. She hopes that by sharing her story and struggles, she will be able to help others feel less alone as they experience her creative take on living with a mental illness. Alrighty, everybody, welcome to the Recovery Revolution Live show today. We're so happy to have you guys on, and happy Thursday to everybody.
What's going on, Carl?
What's going on, fellas? Brett, I think your microphone level seems a little bit low.
A little bit low? I actually turned it up a little bit since the last show.
You?
It's probably just the background music that's drowning me out.
Maybe just the background music. You want me to turn the background music back up? Just
no,
kidding.
Probably not. I feel like I'm in a club or something.
There was an NSYNC playing, so we can't be dancing.
Absolutely. Cool. We got 6 viewers already. All right, guys.
Yeah, we're doing like an Ellen show with like the music.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're going to be dancing pretty soon. Brett's going to come out on his OnlyFans page with a Recovery Revolution live dance, and that's going to be the new TikTok sensation. So, Brett, thank you very much for bringing that to us today. And you were actually going to be sponsoring the show today with your Recovery Survey podcast. So we appreciate you doing that. And we're going to be having 2 giveaways on today's show. Brett is going to be giving the first giveaway, and then I have a surprise giveaway on a second sponsor that we have coming up. And we are going to talk about all those things, plus our guest today, who is Bipolar Barbie, who also goes by the name B, or Jess, if you're in the know. So welcome to the show, B.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. How's your day been today?
Pretty good. Pretty good so far. It's been a chilled Friday for me. It's Friday lunchtime here at noon. So, you know, I got up, I did a bunch of drawing because I'm an artist. So I'm working on some new drawings. And then, yeah, I just had you guys. So pretty chilled morning so far.
Yeah, that sounds really relaxing. I think all 3 of us over here in the United States, we all just got off work and usually the mad rush to get home. And hopefully there isn't a lot of traffic before we jump on the live stream here. So, yeah, man, I wish we could do a live stream like right at lunchtime. That would be lovely. Ashley, would you mind?
It is a pretty good time.
Yeah.
I work for a living.
You work.
Carl was trying to tell me about lunchtime.
Ashley is the one that has 5
lunch?
badges for the 5 gazillion jobs that she has.
Not that you guys don't work, but you know, it's a little more flexible. Yeah. And Carl, you work in, you know, the industry, so they're a little more forgiving for this stuff too.
Yeah. Like today we're putting together, so we've taken apart all of our packets that we give to our clients, and now we're putting them all back together. And I actually had to like rewrite a bunch of the documents because they were old documents and we didn't have digital copies of them, and they weren't able to be, edited or anything. And so I've been in the process of sending it over to all of our insurance providers and stuff to make sure that they meet the requirements that they need for the insurance and stuff. So yeah, it's.
So you guys take your packets apart and put them back together yourself? You don't like have people do that for you?
No, that's I do it because coming into my company, you know, they had been using the same packet for a long time, and so I wanted to make sure that all the documentation that we had in there was up to standards and everything. Carl's
Okay, so
showing
maybe
your work.
so one for the professional environment, one for the recovery environment. You get to do stuff at lunchtime and get people to put packets together and apart. And
yeah, we very small rehab, family run rehab. So you know, everybody wears lots of different hats there. So well, B, it's wonderful to have you on the show, and you're from Australia. What part of Australia are you from?
I'm from the east coast of Australia, so sort of northern New South Wales, right, sort of on the coastline, which is quite nice.
That sounds lovely. So, you know, I've never been to Australia. So if you had something to sell me on coming over to Australia, what would be a selling point for somebody like myself who's never been but maybe would want to come and vacation or visit and learn about the culture and everything?
I think the fact that Aussies are quite laid back, they're quite fun. Everybody's kind of your mate. Like I've done a lot of traveling overseas, and that was one thing that I really noticed. Especially, you know, there's so many small towns. Like it's like 98% of our population lives in, you know, Sydney or Melbourne, in those kind of bigger cities. So the 2% of the population basically lives everywhere else. So it works out that like one person has about 2 square kilometers, which is about a square mile kind of per person, with if you work out the population to the actual land mass. So that means like where I live, there's about 4,000 people that live here. So it's really pretty awesome that you can experience so much. Like I take my dogs to the beach every day, and there's just no one else on the beach where I live, you know, so that is incredible. And when you do see someone else, it's always like, hey, how you going? You know, in passing, everyone's really friendly with each other, and they're really open to kind of new people and, you know, I guess socializing and getting to know each other.
Yeah, that sounds really really nice. I spent some time over in Hawaii, and it was a very similar type of feeling where, you know, just that community aspect of people greeting each other on the beach or people greeting each other as they pass, walking down the street. And it was very opening and very friendly and very inviting to have people come into their communities and learn about the culture and everything else. Sorry, I'm a talker with my hands, and I'm watching my camera like go in and out, and it's like
you got to get that. You got to get the manual focus.
So I'm jealous already because we can't have dogs on the beach. I live on the beach too, but we're not allowed to have dogs. There's like dog beaches, but you can't like take your dog on a walk on the beach.
Oh, we have dog beaches as well.
But you're allowed to take.
We have dog beaches as well, but yeah, we have like a back beach and a front beach, and there's a headland that is kind of like our town. But basically, you know, when you live on the coastline here, it's like every, you know, mile there's a new beach. So, you know, the rules, you know, kind of apply differently, but yeah, you just pick which beach you want to walk up and down. But there is quite a few dog beaches or on leash beaches, off leash. And, you know, where they have the surf lifesaving patrol for people to swim, that's often like a no dog zone. But yeah, I love going down the beach. Speaking of talking with your hands, I actually have a really funny story because I do the same thing, and I'm kind of holding my hands down on the table. Yeah. But I had this first date where I was at Sushi Train. And the guy that I went on this first date with had piled all of his plates at Sushi Train like up in a stack, and then he'd put his chopsticks lying on top of this quite large stack of sushi plates. And as I was talking with my hand hit the side of one of the chopsticks that was on this stack of plates, and then it just like flipped through the air and just poked him straight in the eyeball.
That's amazing.
So I just stabbed this guy in the eye with a chopstick on a first date.
Wow.
Was there a second?
Was there a second?
Yeah, was there a second date to that, or?
There was. He dated me for 6 months, so.
Okay. Maybe only like finger foods after that instead of foods that had to be eaten with objects that might be sharp.
Maybe he liked it.
Absolutely.
Maybe he liked the abuse.
He could have been into that, yeah.
Never know.
No chopsticks recovery. Thank you, JR.
So tell us a little bit about you and, why you came, like tell us about your book. We want to hear
how I got here. Okay, well, I guess they kind of start in like the same way. So I started writing this book, and it was maybe like 2015, I think. And I was having this severe manic episodes. Like I just was not sleeping, and I was just decided I was going to write this book about my life. I'd been in and out of psych wards. I just had this whole big journey, and I started to write this book. And I was sitting in my room writing it, and my house was a complete mess. Like it was just it had been destroyed basically. And my housemate came into my room, and I had about a foot of clothes on the floor throughout, like the whole floor. You could not walk from the door to my bed without treading on something. And my housemate said that if I didn't have as many clothes, I probably wouldn't be able to make as much mess, which, theoretically makes sense, although I still think I could make a mess with less stuff. But I realized that I couldn't really get rid of any of my clothes because I have so many different, wardrobes. So it's like, kind of borderline me goes into this kind of grunge, ripped jeans, kind of acid watch like t-shirt kind of phase. And then depressed me is basically tracksuit pants and oversized t-shirts. And then manic me is bright colors like mini skirts, kind of more revealing. And I realized that each one of my different personalities, each one of these mental illness filters that gets put on you has a different outfit and has a different persona that goes with it. And it's not like multiple personality disorder, but it's just that when you have, different personality traits that come through with different types of mental illness and different phases, they're represented in your actual life. And that's when I sort of felt like I was a bit of a Barbie doll. Barbie had roller skating Barbie and, scuba diving Barbie and, wedding Barbie, nurse Barbie. There was all these different outfits that she had. And there was just some little girl deciding what she was going to be for that day, what role she was going to be playing and acting out. And I sort of felt the same. I felt just as helpless because I didn't get to decide who I got to be every day. Whenever I woke up, there was just some outside force that decided who I was going to be each day. And that's sort of when I came up with this idea that I was just like a bipolar Barbie doll. There was manic Barbie, there was, depressed Barbie, there was anxious Barbie, and all of these different Barbie personas. And that's when this book kind of started to take that turn where there were a series of diary entries and they would be signed off by whatever kind of Barbie I felt like I was at that day. And that's sort of when I started blogging on social media as well about my experience. And I was manic. So, my housemate was like, I don't understand how you can be broke when you're, you're hot. You need to become this Instagram influencer. So I was manic. I was full of confidence. I was like, yes, this is what I'm doing. But as I started to come crashing down, these like revealing kind of photos of myself that I was posting on there as like influencers kind of do, really just felt so different to who I was really as a person and to how I was feeling at the time. So I started just expanding the captions. And then it was about 15,000 followers into this journey where people started to say to me, that we follow you because of what you write, not because of what you look like. And I think that was just a really big turning point for me where I started to focus more on my writing and, more of authentically who I was as a person instead of this image that manic me was trying to, promote to the world. And, my social media pages just grew from there. And it was, an incredible journey and experiment for me to be validated in such a way and understand that I wasn't alone. Because a lot of people in my life made me feel like I was the only one going through this struggle. And, that just expanded from these daily blogs on my social media into, this series of books that I'm now publishing. And the first one's just finally been released after, this like 6 or 7 year kind of journey. But yeah, that's sort of how I got to where I am here today.
Can I ask you a question? Just some of our viewers might not understand, our listeners might not understand, what bipolar disorder is. And there's there's a couple of certain kinds, like they're cyclic. And can you explain what a manic episode is and what a depressive episode is, just so they can kind of understand when you say bipolar what it's
Sure.
like?
So I've been diagnosed with bipolar 2, which is, some people say it's a lesser form of bipolar disorder, but that's not exactly true. What they found now is that bipolar 1 tends to have higher manic episodes, which includes psychotic episodes, and whereas bipolar 2, you don't have those psychotic episodes and you experience more of a mild form of mania, more of a hypermania. And you generally experience a lower low. So you get a lot more depressed than you would with bipolar type 1. So it's not necessarily less significant form, it's just very different. And then, there is kind of rapid cycling bipolar. There is a few different ones mentioned in the DSM, the Diagnostic Manual for Psychiatric Conditions. But that's the main two that most people know and generally get diagnosed with first. The other ones are sort of categories that they put you in if they can't explain sort of what's going on. But a manic episode is basically where you experience symptoms like not needing to eat, not needing to sleep, having excessive amounts of energy. It's sort of like your brain, the dopamine spikes in your brain, you go full speed, the brakes get taken off. So you don't have that voice in your head that says, hey, maybe cartwheeling in the supermarket is not the best idea. You don't have the ability to reason. Your brain is just on overdrive. And if you took an MRI scan of your brain, you would see that it's lit up. And they have shown that people who have prolonged manic episodes will experience the same amount of gray matter deterioration in their brain as someone with Alzheimer's. So it's actually destroying your brain functioning at such, I guess, a high level, but not sort of in like a super intelligence way. It's just your brain is not getting the rest that it needs. And depression is sort of the opposite. Bipolar depression is very physical. It's not just about being all in your head. It's your neurons in your brain won't fire as quickly. The same thing with the MRI. There's parts of your brain that just won't be lit up. You just can't function like a normal human being. You're probably going to sleep a lot more. You're going to maybe eat a lot more. And there's just not a lot of dopamine in your brain, which, gives you the energy to do things. And dopamine, an excess of dopamine will eat up your serotonin. And your serotonin is a sleep hormone. It's also, a happiness hormone. So a lot of, I guess, what defines bipolar is this spike of dopamine eating up your serotonin. So that's during a manic episode. And the higher you go up, the harder you will fall down and the lower you will go. So I guess management of bipolar disorder is about evening out those highs and lows to find a level of stability. Because if you don't go as high up, then you're not going to go as high down. So it's sort of, just about creating more of a plateau and have a normal emotional range of highs and lows rather than the extremes that is bipolar.
And I've been diagnosed with a major depressive disorder, and I know a lot of people don't understand that when you're depressed, your body hurts, or like people will tell you, hey, get out of bed, and after the second day in bed, it's almost like physically not impossible, but it feels impossible. Like getting out of bed feels like running a marathon for other people. Like it's super exhausting. So, having the highs and lows, you're a warrior, like people don't realize the things you've overcome, and to be able to write, to be able to, show up for this, to have an appointment who, you didn't know like how you're going to feel today, and you still, said you'd come, and you still did. That's.
Thank you. And I'm sorry that you're going through that, because I know how difficult it is. And I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to write the book specifically, because I started off writing one book, which was my life story, and I wrote 3,000 pages. And I realized that, okay, this is a little bit more than one book. And when I was told to condense that down, I just realized you can't tell this story in one book. I'm really sick of reading these personal stories and journeys, these heroes' journeys that people go on, where it's, I started here, something bad happened, and then, I got over it and I lived happily ever after. Because that's not what this is about. There's highs, there's lows, there's times that you think you finally made it to the end, but recovery is not, it's not a destination, it's a way of life. So, I really wanted people, in this, so far it's a 6-part series that I've written. I've released the first one called Drowning in the Seas of Mental Illness, but it's part of the Bipolar Barbie diaries. And, each diary entry is like a day-by-day account of what is going on in my life and the lives of many other people, because people don't understand what it's like to reach out for help, go to a doctor, be told that you can't be helped, referred to another doctor, be told that it's just in your head, you've got to see a psychologist, wait 6 months on a waiting list to get an appointment, and then not be able to afford the appointment because you've lost your job, because you haven't been able to get out of bed. There was 6 months where I didn't open a letter, like mail, and I ended up so far behind in my bills, like electricity got cut off. Like, it was just, all of these things go on and your life sort of falls apart around you because you can't function. And, people say mental illness is invisible, but that's not true, because people in my life would say, oh, you haven't been out of your pajamas for weeks. Oh, your hair looks like crap because it's oily. You haven't washed it, or, your personal hygiene's bad. You never leave the house. Your curtains are always drawn. Like, you just, you're still in bed. Oh, you haven't washed your dishes in a week. Look at, all your dirty dishes in the sink. They're growing mold. So it's, people would see it. They would just interpret that as, oh, I was lazy. Oh, I just, it's, and I remember saying once to my mom that I was going to go into the psych ward, and she said, really? I thought that you were like fine. And I was like, how could you think that I was fine? And I explained all of the reasons that she should be able to see that I wasn't fine. And she said, yeah, but you're always like that. And I just thought, isn't that the saddest part, that I've been like this for so long, that people just assume it's my personality?
Finally, it came off mute. Sorry, I was trying to talk.
Sorry.
No. And yeah, it's hard. People judge first before they even think, before they even ask, are you okay? What's going on? This isn't what you normally do. It's, and that's one thing, I've learned is, when someone, their hair's a little oily, or, they've gained weight, I don't say, why have you gained weight? Why do you, is everything going okay? Like, do you need to talk? It's, people go through things that we just don't even know. And there was somebody that posted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think people just don't, there's one story in my book where I talk about when I finally got up the courage for the first time to go and see a doctor. And I was terrified of speaking the words like, I'm not okay. Those were what I thought would be the most difficult part of the process of reaching out for help. But when my doctor turned around and said, okay, what's going on? I realized that the hardest bit was describing what was going on, because there wasn't an easy answer. I couldn't just say, someone in my life died, although, that had recently happened, but there was no one reason. I couldn't say I had just gotten divorced, or, there was nothing that I could really put it on. It's just, I was not feeling okay, and I didn't know why. I didn't have an answer for that question. That's why I was reaching out for help. And I think when, I think the reason there is this kind of stigma is people have a lack of understanding, but the people who do understand, they don't know how to talk about it, because we're not taught a vocabulary when it comes to describing our feelings and our mental health issues.
I completely agree. I'm a big advocate for, teaching young kids like 3, 4 as they're learning, how to enhance their vocabulary, to be able to use words to say how they feel, and to be able to talk about, I wish we had it in our schools more, that just from, kindergarten up, just showing them pictures. What do you feel like today? And being able to say, I'm sad. Johnny, why are you sad? you know, Greg stole my toy. Greg, why would you take his toy? You know, like this is how things you learn these skills, how to talk to others, how to describe your feelings, you know, and he knows that he hurt Johnny's feelings. And then he learns, you know, when I take something, it doesn't feel good to somebody else. And like developing these habits with kids young, you know, could change their whole lives, change the way they treat others. Their connections could be deeper.
It's so important. And just teaching people I feel statements. You know, a lot of adults don't have these I feel statements. And, you know, that there's a big difference, because I see people talking at each other all the time, but I hardly ever see effective communication. You know, and I think that's the root of a lot of relationship problems. But if you hear someone sort of saying, you hurt me, immediately you're going to go on the defensive, like, whoa, I didn't hurt you. But what you're doing in that sense is you're invalidating someone's feelings, you know, and you don't really have a right to tell someone what they think or feel. You know, you don't know that. But just someone accusing you of hurting them is, you know, immediately puts you on that defensive. But if someone said to you, I feel hurt, then immediately you want to respond to them with empathy and understanding. You know, so it's not just about other people being careful of how they react, but it's also about you taking responsibility for the way that you communicate how you feel and what's going on with you to other people, to understand that it's often inside you and it's not necessarily outside you. So even if someone, you know, did something to hurt you, whether or not you're hurt is sort of your choice. I always say that abuse is in the eye of the beholder, but trauma is undeniable.
Makes sense. I mean, you can't, you know, tell someone how they should, you know, trauma is because of something you feel, you know, or something, the way something made you feel. So, it, you know, for some people, it could be, you know, war or seeing war. Is for another person, it could just be, you know, somebody saying something hurtful. It could be a major trauma for them. And it doesn't, one, you know, sounds a whole lot more severe, but it might feel completely the same for both people. So
absolutely, there's no ultimate truth. There's just, you know, your interpretation of the truth and my interpretation of the truth. And, you know, what really happened is kind of somewhere in the middle, especially when we're talking about, you know, people's emotional you know, recounting of how things went down.
Yeah. And communicating effectively is a skill. It's not something you just are born with, and it takes a lot of work. I know, like recently I've learned about how to, you know, active listening and repeating what they say, because there's times, even in emails, I'll write like 3 words and somebody will be like, well, that was, you know, kind of, I'm like, I didn't want to write too much because I didn't want it to be taken out of context. You know, like I was just trying to get the point. And they're like, well, it came off like this. And I'm like, that's not what I said, you know? And so it's like, you know, you know, if somebody's telling you something, you know, to say, but, you know, I heard you say this. Can you explain to me what that means or what you were trying to say? You know, ask questions that are open-ended and listen to what they have to say. Just don't assume and then go mad, you know, off mad. It's a skill I'm still working on. I promise I'm not great at it, but I'm working on it.
I mean, I don't claim to have all the answers. You know, my story is still being written. I sort of intend to work on myself for the rest of my life. You know, I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I'll be satisfied with, I guess, like who I am. I'm at a place right now where I accept where I'm at right now, and I accept that, you know, I'm going on this journey, but I also understand that I will never get to a point where I don't need to work on myself anymore. we need to be constantly learning and, looking at ourselves like, how can I do better? How could I have handled that better? And, not in an anxious kind of overthinking, obsessive way. You still need to understand what negative thinking styles are and make sure you're thinking constructively and proactively rather than, with these negative filters and obsessing. But yeah, I think, personal evolution is what we're kind of on this planet to do. And the second you stop and believe you know everything about everyone and yourself and who you are, and you just say, well, this is who I am, I'm just going to accept that. The reason I got so far in this journey is because I never accepted that, the mentally ill law school dropout that I became was all that I was ever going to be. I just did not accept it. Like, I'm sorry if I got told by a doctor that, this is just who you are now. This is your life. Depression is just going to be with you forever. I was like, no, it's not. I will find a way to live because I just do not believe that life could be this cruel to someone, and I'll do whatever it takes to fight for the life that I think I deserve.
Does life look a lot different today than it looked back then?
Yes.
So
In a lot of ways.
There's hope. So
there is 100% hope, but also I know that if I told my past self what I'm experiencing now was possible, I would have just been like, I could not have foreseen that future because of how far I was. So I want to tell everyone out there is hope, but I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. It's hard and it's difficult and it's the hardest thing that you will ever do. But when I tell people not to give up, I don't mean that in the, don't take your own life. I mean, that's obvious, but I mean, don't give up fighting. People who say I tried one medication and then it didn't work for me, so I've never gone back. Well, I've tried 17 different combinations of medications. I've had 5 different psychiatrists. I've been to 2 different psych wards. I've lost count of the amount of therapists that I've had, but I've had counselors, therapists, clinical psychologists, a whole range of different doctors. And I just, if I didn't get the answer that I wanted, if I didn't get the response that I wanted, I was just like, okay, I'm going to see somewhere else. I'm not going to just give up because one thing didn't work.
Well, I think it's hard for people to realize too, when they try a new medication, they want you on it for at least 2 weeks to see if it's working. So, it takes a long time to see.
3 months.
Oh, they have you 3 months? Oh. A lot of times they say, well, 2 weeks, like if there's like side effects and stuff like that. But 3 months. So, 3 months, think of 17 different medications. Was it 17 you said? 3 months times that, it's a long time. That's a long fight. And sometimes just getting through the day is hard.
You've got to wean yourself off it. You've got to wean yourself off it too, so it's like you spend 3 months seeing if it works, and then you've got to go to the doctor and convince them it's not working. And then they've got to wean you off slowly, which can take up to another 3 months, before they can put you on something else.
Yeah. And there's such a stigma too, like when you're going through all that and even, going to a mental hospital or stuff like that, sometimes that's the best option, but there's so much stigma saying I've been to a mental hospital, but that's a place they can give medication and try it out. And, you're supervised and, it's, that's sometimes where the most progress happens. So there shouldn't be any stigma, but, hopefully by, people like you speaking out, it'll change outcomes and, the ability for other people to see that there's hope and that they can talk about it too.
I hope so. I really do hope so. And I also know that as a fact. I was walking on the beach yesterday and I was just thinking about a few different moments that happened in my life. And I guess these are 2 sort of, huge moments that really transformed me as a person. And I used to work in a hotel. And when I was in there, I checked this guy into this hotel. And I just knew, I could just tell that he wasn't okay. Just, I don't know what it was, but it was just like his demeanor. I knew that he was depressed. I just knew it. And I was depressed myself at the time. So I wasn't my normal peppy, hey, how you going? I hope you have a fantastic day. Because I always try and make sure everyone else is happy. I was just kind of like, here's your key. Like, I need your credit card, whatever. Here, sign the form. Off you go upstairs. Anyway, the next day he ended up jumping off the building and committing suicide. And I remember just wondering for a very long time if I could have changed that guy's life. And not really knowing, not like blaming myself, but I know also how much a simple smile can change your life, because I've been in that position where I've been walking down the street, back and forth over a train bridge, wondering whether or not I should jump, and just contemplating it for hours. And then having all of these people in a really busy street on this city walking past me. And then one person just smiled at me as I was pacing back and forth. And I remember just thinking, I'm not going to take my life today, because that person saw me. That person thought that I was worth enough to just smile at me in the street, a complete stranger. And he saved my life that day, and he'll never know that. But I know the power of how much just a simple act of kindness, like smiling to someone, can change their life, and can just make all of the difference to making, them worth living,
Yeah, 100%. Because, when you're in that state, you feel worthless. And just somebody thinking you're worth it, you're worth their smile, you're worth their 5 seconds to say, hi, how are you? You're worth a phone call. Like, those are super meaningful in those moments.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I always just message my friends randomly. I was at a funeral the other day, and it just, I just messaged all of my friends, and I just said, I love you. And I want you to know that I love you. I care about you. Even if I don't speak to you, I only speak to you like once a year or something. It's like, you are valuable to me, and I'm glad that you're in my life. And I just want you to know that, for no reason in particular, just putting that out there, because I've lost so many people, and I just really want to make sure that when they or I leave this earth, that everyone in my life knows how much they mean to me, because I think that is something that we don't say. And the amount of times, another example where I was literally had a bottle of pills in my hand, and I was about to take them when I saw my best friend calling me on the phone. And, I answered it, and she just saved my life that day without even knowing. Like, we didn't talk about anything in particular, but just the fact that she was there, in that moment, and I had something to grasp onto, is, another moment that changed my life and saved my life. And even my dog, there was one night, and I have not been suicidal since this moment, but for whatever reason, I'd never thought about hanging myself. But this one night, it was 2:00 in the morning. I'd been so distraught, and everyone was inside their house and I was outside their house. And I knew how easy it would have been to walk inside, wake my sister and my brother-in-law up and just say, I'm not okay, I need help. But I had done that in the past. And the answer is always like, well, are you going to kill yourself? Because if not, just like leave us alone and let us sleep. It's when you're suicidal, there's not like a switch that, you don't know where that level is. It kind of creeps up on you, and it's like, well, am I going to do it? Am I not? I don't know. I'm on the edge, and, you don't want to overreact. So I ended up going outside to this like rotunda that we have outside with rafters. I tied a rope around it, and I was standing on this table, and I remember just looking down, and I saw my dog, this dog that's behind me right now. He was looking up at me, and he was just terrified. Like, he knew what was going to happen. And I remember just seeing my reflection in his eyes, and I just thought, how can I abandon this animal? I am his entire life. He's my dog. He's no one else's dog. He's spent so much time with me that he would literally die of sadness if I disappeared. And I remember just thinking, if I'm not going to live for myself, then I'm going to live for him. And I promised him that I would never try and take my life again. And it's been about 3 years since that day, and I haven't. So, that's a way that even a dog and you know, the benefits of having pets in your life can change your life and give you something to live for.
I think it's really important to, you know, say that even if you don't feel like you're worth being here or that you matter to anybody, that there are people that you matter to. It doesn't matter if you have a job. It doesn't matter if you're using drugs. It doesn't matter if you're in recovery and you have a reoccurrence. It doesn't matter if you hurt somebody. There are people that still care. There's people that probably care that you don't even know care, or that you've even talked to twice. You know, it's, and I understand what it feels like to be there. It's in May, it'll be 5 years since I last attempted. But it was after my best friend, you know, attempted to successfully took her life. And it's just devastating, like, that she's not here, that she's not getting to, you know, come through to the other side, or, you know, there's things going on that, you know, I want to call her and talk to her about. And it's just so sad to me that, you know, she felt like that was better. And
I don't know if you feel that. I'm really sorry that you had to go through that you were at that place. And, you know, the dedication of my second book, I'll give you a little bit of an inside scoop, is dedicated to the 1 million people worldwide who commit suicide. And the caption below it is, "I'm sorry we failed you." Because I think that's really what it is. People don't commit suicide. They die from depression. You know, the same way someone dies from cancer, it's not necessarily the cancer that kills you, but it's the complications and how your body shuts down as a result of that. So, you know, because I've been suicidal in my life, when I hear about someone committing suicide, it's so sad that I will never see that person again, but I can't blame them because I've been there. You know, I hear a lot of other people talk about how dare they do that to me? How dare they leave me? So, you know, it's, but for me, I just feel, I know how bad a person has to get to, like, in their life, and how much just stress they have to be suffering with on a daily basis to see no other way out. You know, for me, it was like, I couldn't live like this anymore. So I either changed the way that I was living, which didn't seem to be possible. You know, I wasn't getting the help that I needed through medication and things like that. So the only real two options I had was to drown myself with alcohol or drugs, or to basically take my own life. You know, if you can't live like that anymore and there's no other way to live, then that's the unfortunate kind of last resort that you have.
And you're 100%, you know, accurate. For her, it was, she had a reoccurrence, and she knew her boyfriend would leave her. She knew that she would lose her kids because they'd gotten taken away previous. If she admitted that she needed help, she didn't know what to do. She thought she would lose her kids. She thought, you know, so it's, you know, it's hard.
Yeah. And that is so hard, and that is so painful. And whether or not you have a reason to be sad, or depression has just taken its toll, because, you know, we need to remember as well that a lot of people commit suicide who seem to have everything. You know, it's depression. I guess I raise awareness and I try and make a distinction between mental health and mental illness, because everyone is going to have mental health issues. Not everyone is going to be diagnosed with a mental illness. You know, so for example, in my book, I really try and make that distinction. The labels for me are irrelevant. Call it whatever you want, as long as you know, fix me, basically. But in the book, I try and name what it is I'm going through specifically, so people understand the difference between what is situational depression, you know, what is just general anxiety about life, what is anxiety because something in your life really needs to change, and what is a biological condition that needs treatment, because they're not the same. That's why the same treatment isn't going to work for everyone. And, you know, I'm actually going to give away one of the copies of my book to one of the viewers today. And, you know, I think it's a book that everyone really needs to read. Like, this book is amazing. I know I'm biased. I know I wrote it. The reviews have been incredible. I know it's just going to change so many people's lives. But, you know, people who know me, family and friends that have read it, they're surprised that I can write this good. They're like, wow, it's actually a really interesting book and your writing's amazing. I'm like, yeah, did you doubt me? But I think, yeah, it's going to change so many lives. It's got like a lot of pictures that, you know, go through it, and they sort of complement it, because I did start on Instagram like as that kind of blog. Yeah, I think you have the paperback version. This is a hardcover version. I did the art as well. These are the covers for the next few books as well that I'm working on in the series. They've all got that kind of eye with something different. But yeah, I think everyone needs to get a copy of this book. I think it will change your life. It'll make you feel less alone. I really hope that people who haven't struggled with mental health issues read it as well. I think everyone can take away something from the book, but I really wish everyone in my life could read it, because, you know, they can understand what I go through and hopefully understand what many people. I know you've got the book, Ashley. Have you found it related some parts to your journey?
So I'm going to be 100% honest that I got it like 2 days ago. It took a little bit to come. So it took like a week after I ordered it that I knew you were coming on. And with school and stuff, I haven't started, but I plan to start. And I do want everyone to know you can get it on Amazon. There's like 2 different options here. So the hardcover wasn't an option. I don't think. There's a black and white, and then there's the color. So there was 2 options that I saw. That there might be 3. I might have missed it, but I definitely will read it and then get back to everybody and let them know how it was. And maybe we could have, like, if there's other people that want to read it and they leave comments, we could start a book club about it and talk about some of these things too. Like, have some conversations.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think bringing the awareness.
We can just start hashtagging all the different Barbies.
There you go.
I think bringing the awareness to the mental health world is so important for us. Not only being in recovery and the mental health stuff that we have going on inside of our own minds, but also the stigmas that go along with the way that people view us as people with a mental illness. And a lot of people don't even realize that if you've been diagnosed with a substance use disorder, you have been diagnosed with a mental illness, and it's in the DSM, you know, and it's one of those things that not a lot of people understand. And there's really good resources for people with mental illnesses over here in the States. I'm not sure about in Australia, but we have a lot of resources out there to help people to go back to school, to learn trades, to, you know, get along in their daily lives. So, guys, we really interesting topic today, and this is so exciting. And Ashley, thank you for taking the reins on this one. Good to see you come out of your shell a little bit. Yay! And we are going to be doing our first giveaway. So we want to make sure that everybody is going to be doing the hashtag recovery survey. That's going to be all one word. And we are going to be giving away one of Brett's shirts here in about 2 minutes. So I want to make sure everybody gets the chance to put their hashtags in the comments if you're watching live. And then a little bit later on in the show, we are going to be giving away one of Bipolar Barbie's shirts. Or excuse me, not shirts, books. Thank you. And and we're going to be giving one of her books away, and that'll be a copy. Now, is that going to be coming directly from you, B, or is that coming?
Yes,
from?
It'll most likely be this exact book here. Ooh, so okay. It'll be a signed copy. I can either sign it to you, or if you want to give it as a gift to someone, sign it to a friend. So okay. Yeah. Awesome, you can also order these books through my website as signed copies. They're a little bit more expensive to get. The book is the same price as on Amazon, even a little bit cheaper, but the shipping to get it over to the US from Australia is a little bit more, unfortunately. But yeah, you can get signed copies from my website, shipped directly by me too.
That's awesome. And I have to say, I love the artwork on there. I'm a big, I like blue in general, but that blue that you have on the front cover is so grabbing, and it's so, like, it draws me into the book. And so I'm definitely going to order a copy because I have now that I've started doing this podcast, I've started building a book list. So I'm going to put that on my list of books to read, but definitely really interesting. and it's just so creative. And your creative outlets do not seem to stop just with writing. And as you mentioned, the covers coming up on a few of your other books are directly behind you, and those look amazing too.
Yeah, thank you. The gold one is Psych Ward, so that's going to be an eye, and that's why you kind of got the hands and the bars in there. But it's gold because that was a very valuable experience, you know. And the silver one that way is Limbo, and that's actually got like an ornate clock on it. So that's about being, you know, I guess the second one is Hell. I don't have that one up here, but you know, that's wading through the waters of hell. So once you stop drowning in the seas of mental illness and your life has fallen apart, then you know, you start going through hell. And then after you know, get out of hell, you're in limbo, and you're in between the land of the living and the dead, you know. So you either take your life because you can't live, you're kind of just stuck in the middle, just going through the motions of each day. So yeah, they're I'm excited for those too.
That's really
it's a lot of work publishing a book though, and it's a lot of work when you have a mental illness, you know. You know, that you just go through like 6 months where you doubt yourself so much, or you don't have the energy or the focus, and you just can't, you know, get it. And then you have these spurts of getting it done, and I've learned to live with it, live with my functioning capacity that I have, and just embrace that and forgive myself and allow myself to rest when I need to rest, and then take advantage of the work I can do when I can function.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to get your book, Ashley said that she found your book on Amazon, and you can also go to your website, which is Bipolar Barbie, and we have that up on the banner with her book there, and also down below on the screen. So bipolarBarbie.com, and you can order her book. It is coming from Australia, so just remember it might take a little bit longer for those of you who are in the States, but that's okay, because it definitely sounds like it's going to be worth the wait. So okay, hey Brett, are we ready to do our first giveaway, sir?
I'm ready, man. Whenever you are.
All right, brother. You have our do we have giveaway theme music? Yes, I love it.
Always.
Ooh, drum roll or something.
Oh, it's coming. Don't worry. I got all the sound effects loaded up after you and Jason were giving me a hard time about it, so I'm prepared, sir.
Yeah, you have it on, right? Because
I do.
Okay.
And the winner of the shirt is Jason Rudine, last week's guest.
Jason Rudine. Jason, welcome back to the show, brother. It was so good to have you on last week, and congratulations for winning the Recovery Survey t-shirt. Brett will be getting a hold of you, and we'll get your information, and we will be sending that over to you. And we're going to be running our next promotional thing, which is going to be hashtag Bipolar Barbie. And we're going to be doing a giveaway.
Give me just a second to get it set up before you guys
Brett's
start
doing that on the fly. Thank you, Brett. You're doing an amazing job over there, pushing all those buttons and clicking all those clickers and finding all that music for us. You're really doing a stellar job there, my friend. So, all right.
And what about you, Carl?
Yes.
I want to throw you under the bus for a second, but you guys were pretty quiet, which is fine. But I just want to know, you know, if you have experiences with mental health, or you know, how you find talking about it. I guess, is that hard for you to do?
Oh, sure. No, definitely not hard for me. I work in the mental health field, so for me, working with clients or patients with you know, dual diagnosis and with different disorders other than, you know, the addiction disorders that we have out of the DSM. You know, very comfortable for me to work with. My own experience, sometimes I get depressed, but I don't think it's anything that would be diagnosable. But, you know, I feel that, you know, my levels are pretty good most of the time. The work that I've done in recovery has really kind of helped me find out who I am and to learn how to Carl has never been this quiet. Thank you, JR.
True. No, I was just wondering. You guys were so silent.
Well, no, we were letting Ashley go because you guys were having a great conversation, and I felt like I didn't really want to like interrupt because it had a lot of really good momentum going and a lot of really good content there. And sometimes if we just kind of like jump in, you know, it could derail the whole thing. So Yeah, it was like perfect, like girl time. And I think that it was like super valuable for you guys to have that conversation.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just wanted to, I think it's important for people to understand that guys can talk about this stuff too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%. I just
And it's
got oh, I just got the the book. Is it called Guys Cry or Men Cry Too? Or I'm not sure. So I haven't read that one yet either. It just came to, but title's
yeah.
catchy.
We do.
Yeah, and
indeed.
it's really important because this is something that we learned in school when I was in school and stuff, is that when we grow up with our family units and we have our family values, and these are values that are instilled in us with different types of people that we're around and growing up and everything. And when we take our family values and we're taught, guys play with trucks and guns and and all this stuff, and girls play with dolls and these things. And for a lot of the guys that I've come in contact with and the clients and everything, that value system is very just kind of straightforward and macho. But when we come into recovery and we come into a community that is a mental health community, we have to learn how to get in touch with ourselves, and we have to learn that having our feelings and having these emotions that come up for us is perfectly healthy and it's okay. And the best thing that we can do is to talk about them. Don't hold them inside, because if we hold them inside, that's where the danger lies. That's where it's going to build up. That's where it's going to manifest. And that's where it's going to really kind of, just eat away at us. And like Ashley was talking about with effective communication, we have to be effective being able to communicate. We have to be able to be effective in order to express our emotions and our feelings in an effective manner. And also using the proper words and verbiage and stuff. And for a lot of people coming into a recovery situation, they might not understand how to express themselves. They might use the term good as a overall feeling, without being able to describe, well, how are you really feeling? I would have clients that I would, see at the rehab, and they, oh, I'm doing good today. And I say, no, I really want to know how you're feeling. I don't want to know if you're good or not. Give me a feeling word. And it's really important to understand that we have our feeling words, and those are really important to understand and to get to know. And there's so many different feelings that we can have. And, that's why we use tools like the face chart and everything to help people understand the different feelings.
Absolutely. And also, like, bad emotions aren't bad. There's an amazing quote by Dr. Phil where he talks about being in Texas, growing up in Texas and super hot roads. And he says, like, when I was a kid, I was standing on the road in Texas, and he said it was so hot it would burn the bottom of your feet. So he said, obviously you felt pain, and it was physical pain, but it's similar to emotional pain. And he said, without that pain, you wouldn't get off the road. That pain there is telling you to run to the grass to get to the other side so that you don't burn the soles of your feet. So it's very similar with emotional pain. You sort of have to ask yourself, like, is there something in my life that's causing this? Because yes, there's mental illness, like bipolar or some major depression, schizophrenia, but there is also mental health issues that are related to being in a terrible relationship, being in a terrible job, being in a terrible environment that you need to get yourself out of. So in those circumstances, people, might try and numb their pain either with medication, with drugs or alcohol. But that pain is there trying to tell them something, and ignoring that pain or trying to numb that pain. And even myself, I've had mental health illness, like mental illnesses, but also these mental health issues. And I was never going to be stable unless I got my life together. So that is, a very important point to understand what the root of that pain is.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I really like that I learned when I was taking a suicidology course, or not a course, it was a seminar, and the keynote speaker at the seminar said that we have to find the locus of our pain. We have to find that root of our pain. And I don't know why the word the locus of our pain really stuck with me, but it was very impactful for me. And just to hear that made it sound like, we're going deeper than just like what is bothering you. We're getting down to the root of the problem. And to be able to identify that is some of the hardest things to do, but it can be some of the most impactful things that we can do when we're trying to help somebody overcome any type of mental, distress, PTSD, bipolar disorder, and all these things, is to try to find kind of the root of the problem and what's really kind of digging at you at that moment.
Absolutely. I mean, the one of the reasons that I've become, where I am today, like this is a shed out the back of my parents' house that I've converted into this, and I've been living here for a few years now. It's been a traumatic experience at first because they were a root of a lot of my pain and issues, but living here sort of forced me to deal with them. So if I could kind of deal with the devil, then, all relationships from now on are going to be easy. But I also had to be single, and I've been single for 2 years, not ready to mingle. And it has been such a freeing experience because a lot of my issues were, about this fear of being alone. So now that I'm alone and I'm 100% okay with being alone, it's allowed me to set these boundaries. I don't have to, feel bad and do things for other people and give out energy that I don't have. I can just be me. And, when people want my time and I'm not in a place to give it, I'm like, no, sorry. And you're not going to make me feel guilty for saying no to you. I'm not on this planet to serve you, even though I was brought up in that kind of mindset. Saying no, I was beaten for. But also being in this environment, my parents try and kick me out, and I just say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not leaving. Whereas before that, I was in a different share house every few months. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have financial stability. I didn't have housing stability. I didn't have relationship stability. So how was I expecting to be stable in myself as a person if everything around me was like volcanoes and tornadoes and I was just in this whirlwind kind of situation? So getting those foundations was sort of the start of putting the bricks back together of my life, just clearing away all of that rubble, putting down a concrete slab, and then just starting to build that house of what I wanted my life to look like.
I think that people, a lot of people don't realize how important safety is, emotional safety, physical safety. It's really hard to be stable mentally, physically, all of that without knowing where you're going to live tomorrow, where you're going to get your next meal, if you're going to be yelled at, if you're not going to be yelled at. If you're, the first step to wellness is, feeling safe, feeling emotionally safe, being able to have conversations, feeling, like, that you're going to be okay tomorrow, you're going to have a place to live. Like, how can you focus on, yourself when you don't know what you're going to do tomorrow?
I often look at it like, for a long time, I was in survival mode, and I could only dream of a world where I was living, where I could actually live a life, because, just because you're alive doesn't mean you're living. So, when you're in survival mode, you're really just taking it day by day and by second. And, people in my life always say to me, it's crazy how bad things happen to you. And you just shrug it off and go, oh, well, shit happens. That's an Australian saying, like, shit happens, whatever. And I'm just like, well, I've just been shot so many times that at the end of the day, you just kind of focus on what you can control and let go of what is outside of your control. So sometimes going through traumatic experiences can help you grow in that regard. But I've finally gotten to a place where I can say that I am living, where I feel alive and I have a life to live. And now I'm dreaming of the place that I can get to where I'm thriving, and I'm not quite there yet, but that's where I want to be. And, for so many years, that just seemed like a fantasy, an unattainable fantasy. But yeah, if you're in survival mode, goal one is just learning to live again. And that's when people say things like, well, why can't you just, go to the party? Why can't you just get out and walk your dog? It's like, well, I'm in survival mode. It's very similar as if I was in a war zone. And my physiotherapist, because I had a horse riding accident when I was 14 and I broke my neck and fractured my spine. And it was only 2 years ago that physical pain caught up with me. And no one could really believe that I hadn't felt that physical pain for, 10 years. But he said, if you're in a war zone and you tread on a needle, you're not going to feel that pain because there's so much going on around you and you've got so much adrenaline flowing. So basically that was the same thing for me. I was fighting for my life, trying to stay alive. And the emotional pain was so intense that I just could not feel this physical pain that I had. My brain just switched off those pain receptors because I just had so much other stuff that I was dealing with that was more present, at the moment.
Totally understandable. So I want to hear from Brett. I want him to sit in the chair. And is it hard to talk about your feelings, Brett?
No, I don't really think so. I mean, definitely, I can relate to some of the comments that have come in as far as like in the early stages of recovery, the emotions can be kind of overwhelming. I think I've gotten to a place though now where I'm okay with my emotions, and I'm definitely a lot more emotional. I'm not as closed off as I was when I was using. Like I feel like I cry on a I don't know if regular basis would be the right description, but probably like once a month or so, and now today I'm learning how to deal with things in more of a healthy way. The coping mechanisms that I used in my addiction were to get high, and that was the same. I mean, that was the end result of everything I did. If something good happened, I got high. If something bad happened, I got high. Like that was just a continual thing for me. And so once I took away that crutch, I had to really examine myself and begin to do some of that internal work and figure out why was that my solution, and why was I so afraid of my emotions. I think a lot of that goes back to childhood, especially. I'm sure Carl can probably attest to it. As men, we're kind of taught to be like that macho, unemotional person. Like we're supposed to be like the tough pillar in the family and like be the leader and never show that we're scared or that we're whatever the emotions are. And that was kind of the way that I was brought up, was like, we don't like that. That's my dad. Like, I think I've seen my dad cry maybe once in my entire life. Like that was just kind of what I was taught, is we don't show emotion. So I've been learning over the past few years, like how to be that person and like be vulnerable. And, even like my wife and I have been married for a few years now, and like starting to open up to her and be emotional and be vulnerable and let her know like, hey, I'm struggling. It's difficult right now. It's, work is stressful, or, financially it's stressful when we do this. Like we need to, we need to plan better, or we need to not spend that money, or whatever it is. Like being able to communicate but finding that balance too. Cause in early recovery, I think for me, all those emotions came back, and like the one that was the easiest to go to is anger, like just be mad about shit. And now it's like finding that way to communicate in a healthy manner.
And can I actually put something really interesting that I learned about that anger when you're sort of coming down from addiction, and something that happens with a lot of heavy duty pot smokers, they get really angry after a point of time, is that often when you get high, there's a neurotransmitter in your brain called GABA. It has a really long name that I can't remember, but GABA for short. And it's like the calming like neurotransmitter. It's the rhythm. So if you look at your brain like an electrical unit, dopamine's like the power supply, serotonin's like the brakes, the on and off switch. Acetylcholine is like the fiber, cables, the kind of fluid around the nerves that creates that myelin sheath. So that's like the fluidity, that kind of ampage that you get. And GABA is the rhythm that you get as well in your brain. And when you're using like things like drugs and alcohol, the chemicals actually attract to the GABA receptors. So basically it artificially replaces the GABA in your brain. So then your body can no longer absorb those natural GABA neurotransmitters, which is that rhythm that calms you down. It's the calm, nurturing, kind of rhythm in your body. So when you suddenly stop putting in that artificial GABA into your brain, then all of a sudden you don't have anything. And it takes a long time for your body to actually start producing that neurotransmitter naturally again and be able to absorb it in your body. So there is actually a biological reason as to why you feel that anger when you try and stop. Because your brain isn't able to kind of regulate your emotions properly.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. And I also went through that phase of like, I guess it would be depression, where I felt like no matter what I did, like I couldn't find that happiness or that joy because I had been using for so long that those I'm totally blanking on the correct words to use because I'm on the spot. But like the dopamine was gone and my body wasn't making it anymore. It was like, I can't find happiness. Like everything sucks. Like, what's the point? And that was kind of that was like a 6-month period in the beginning for me of just like depression and not really knowing what to do.
Yep. And all different, and drugs do it in a different way. Opiates, it takes a year for serotonin to come back after, and dopamine's a long time with that too. Amphetamines, there's, it changes the chemical makeup of your brain. So your body has to learn how to make those chemicals again. Some people, they never get to healthy levels again after, prolonged use. So I think that was an important thing that you said, Jess, so that people can realize.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just looking at my bookcase because there's an incredible book on the neurotransmitters, which it explains so much. I just can't see it on my bookshelf right now, and I can't remember the name of it, being put on the spot right now. But it's a fantastic book by Dr. Eric Braverman. He wrote it, and he talks about the 4 main neurotransmitters. I just can't think of the name, but Dr. Eric Braverman. But yeah, he explains the role of the 4 main neurotransmitters, what changes them, and also what is your nature. So my nature is acetylcholine, which is creative. It's flexibility of thought. So that's like my natural state. So my body functions more on an excess of acetylcholine. But if you're deficient in that one or all of the other ones, it changes your personality, it changes your moods, what you're physically capable of. And a lot of my chronic pain was due to a deficiency in both GABA and acetylcholine. So when you're coming off, drugs, or you've gone through a lot of things, I would highly recommend having a look at that book because it does focus a lot on diet and lifestyle. And one of the things, for example, someone who's acetylcholine dominant, what they watch and what they surround themselves with is very much absorbed into their being. And I mean, I think everyone is, but for me, that's a huge thing, being creative. So, if I'm binge watching depressing stuff all the time or surrounding myself with a really depressive environment, then that's what my body is absorbing. That's what my mind is seeing, and it's ticking over somewhere in the back, all of that content. So what I try and do when I'm drawing or kind of doing those things, I'll put on a background podcast or, a background documentary of something that is good. Whether it's about psychology or just something kind of motivational, and just little things like that, I think in people's environment and what they expose themselves to can make a huge difference. Because if you're just sitting there death scrolling through social media and you've gotten stuck in the wrong algorithm and you're down some rabbit hole of some depressing stuff, then, you're going to absorb that into your body. And, you can't possibly hope to be in a happy place if you're not exposing yourself to things that make you feel like whole and are in line with your true nature.
Yeah, I see a couple different books by Dr. Eric Braverman. Is it The Edge Effect or is it Healing
The Edge
Nutrients
Effect,
Within?
yes.
The Edge Effect, okay.
The Edge Effect.
I'll put that in the description and in the show notes for people that are listening later on.
Yeah, really, there's a lot of so many good resources out there for people that want to learn about how our brain is affected when we intake drugs and stuff. There's another really good book written by, and I'm gonna mess his last name up. I'm really good at messing people's name up. It's Darryl. crap, I don't even want to say it because I'm going to screw it up, but it's called Uppers, Downers, and All-Arounders, which is another really good textbook if you want to dive into the kind of the pharmacology end of things. And so in school we had to do a whole pharmacology in class, and that, in fact, that was my first class that I had to take, was psychopharmacology, and it was so intense to learn about these different transmitters and the receivers and how our brain works and why does our brain work this way, and what are certain things blocking and what are certain things allowing us to have an overflow of. And so really good resources out there if anybody's looking for books. Maybe Brett, and we can get a couple of links up for those books in the show description as well, maybe to send people over if they're interested in learning more about the pathways within our brain. But the brain is so resilient too. The great thing about our brain is that if we take one pathway and we block it in and we say you are not going to be able to use this because it's being preoccupied by something else, our brain has the innate ability of finding a different way around it. And also the damaged portions of our brain. So and the brain has a good way of repairing itself. A lot of the damage we do with using sometimes is repairable. Sometimes it's permanent, but a lot of times it can be repaired, but it takes a couple of years for your whole brain to kind of regenerate and to repair itself.
Those good
Well,
habits
I think
too.
that
Yeah.
goes for all of your life as well. I think that kind of goes for all of your life as well. Like, I like to think that every second is a chance to change your life. Like I understand that I have control over most things in my life, or control it to how I react to those things. And sometimes I just want to do a number of myself and think of something super depressing and cry. And I know that I don't have to think about that. I know that I can change that thought. I know that I can get out of that state. And I know the tools that I have, the coping mechanisms that I have to be able to change that. But sometimes I'm like, you know what? I just want to wallow in my own self-pity for a while. But, because I know that I'm the one that's allowing myself to do that, I can go, well, I'm going to accept the consequences for this. I can change it. And, in the past, sometimes I have given up on going to therapy for 6 months or a year. And then, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give that another go now. So just because you did it once and then you never went back, like today's the day. Like, if you're listening to this is a new chance for you to change your life, to start a new habit. And the amount of that I've tried to start new habits, and I might just take a 6-month hiatus and then say, you know what, I'm going to go back to editing my books today. I'm going to go back to picking up that hobby that I started. I'm going to go back to that yoga class, or go back on trying to eat healthy again, or, go back and reach out to that psychiatrist and say that I'm in a different place now and I want to give this another go. I think every second we can make a different choice to change our life, and we'll do that up until the day we die. It's never too late.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to post the Amazon link over to one of the books there, but I'll send it over to Brett in our private chat, and we will definitely get that up on the thing. And just so you guys know, if you're looking for some of these textbooks, man, I learned something really important when I was in school. Buy the book used. You can find used books at a fraction of the price than a new book, because I was looking at this book online and new, it's like $74 to $100. And I'm not going to spend that much on a textbook. And I would buy used in like new or good condition. And through all the time that I've been in school, I've been buying used textbooks. Typically, they don't have hardly any writing on the inside. They might have some highlighting, and they're usually in really good condition. So, and I like to keep all my books. I don't like to give them back at the end of the semester, because they're so invaluable at work and with what I do and everything. And so, yeah. So what keeps you so positive there, B? What is your positive drive in life?
Honestly, I don't really know. I think I've always been like this, but also I guess you have to understand a little bit about my background. Like, I was brought up in a way, like I was that kid at school that was just so obnoxiously good at everything. Like, you know, that person, you can always think of one person in your mind that's top of all the classes, like good at all the sports, like does all the extracurricular activities, like that typical, like, I guess, American movie high schooler that's like has absolutely everything. And that was me. And I was just promised, like, you're going to be prime minister one day. You're going to take over. You're going to change the world. Like, all of these great things. You can do anything because, you know, you're smart. You're talented. You got this. Like, you can, you know, the world's your oyster. And when my whole world fell apart, you know, that future just seemed to disappear. And I was not capable of any of the things that I used to be capable of. You know, I just went from this highly functioning individual to this completely non-functioning person. And I don't know. I think it comes down to the fact that I never lost hope that I could be that person again. You know, I was always trying to get back to myself. And I think that did hold me back for a little while because I was trying to get back to the person that I was. But I realized I was kind of fighting to be this ghost. And it was more about who I was becoming. But I just think I never accepted the fact that life was going to be shitty for me. You know, it was. And I just did not want to ever accept that. I just, you know, I've lost hope many, many times, but I would always find a way to find it again. You know, it's a candle that I think never truly goes out. You know, it's a flame like a Bunsen burner that you can turn up and down, but, you know, it never fully got extinguished, I guess, for me. Even though at times I'd be living in darkness. And when I went to Nepal, I did an amazing trip over there, and the Buddhist monks in this temple, they named me Junelli, which is actually this shoulder that I have tattooed here. And that was my Nepalese name. And it meant the brightest moon on the darkest night. It was a lunar phenomenon. And, you know, that really meant a lot to me because I always had this manic episode, which was like a bright, you know, moon, and then the complete darkness of depression. But I also kind of feel like where life has taken me is that my journey is to, you know, light up the darkness for a lot of other people. I just kind of felt like that was my purpose. And I don't know if you've looked into like the hero's journey, but most stories that have ever been written or told have this hero's journey, and there's 5 steps in that hero's journey. But I remember being in the psych ward one day, and I was talking about how much I had lost to my therapist. You know, I'd lost my law degree. I'd lost my modeling career. I'd lost, you know, my partner. I'd lost absolutely everything that I felt like I wanted in life. But she said to me, you have to stop thinking about what you've lost and start thinking about what you've gained. You know, that kind of trivial silver lining. But when I really thought about what little me wanted, like what did little Jess want? When I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a fashion designer. I wanted to be a motivational speaker. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to write a book, and I wanted to change the world. And in that moment, I realized that I had actually gained everything that I ever wanted. Everything that young me wanted. I had something to talk about. You know, this journey had made my art better. It had given me something to express, and how I had turned that into becoming a mental health advocate made me feel like I really was changing the world, or at least the lives of one other person. So for me, being able to see the good that I could do with my journey, and the strengths that I now had, this understanding of, you know, this world and this experience that not many people could understand, but also my innate ability to communicate that information, it just sort of clicked that, you know what, this is my purpose in life. And this is what I'm going to devote my life to doing. This is what I love. This is who I am as a person. This is what makes me feel complete and whole. And I think in a way I had to have my whole life destroyed to strip away everything that maybe society had put on me. You know, I was told you were too smart to be an artist. I was, you know, I was sort of filtered into this like box, this tunnel that society, my teachers, my family, everyone had kind of put this pressure on me to go a certain way. And, you know, the picture of what my life was meant to be was a certain way. But once I sort of just stripped all of that away and went back to like, well, who am I? What am I actually good at? And, you know, start to live what I would call like my true nature, my true sort of calling, and just who I was as a person. That was kind of a moment that I really just could get over what I had in life. what I had experienced and just start looking towards the future and kind of what I was building. And that's really what gave me hope.
Yeah.
Well, I have some bad news for you. I think you might be changing the world.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Should we give away your book and change
Yeah.
somebody else's world a little
Yes.
bit?
I think that's a good idea. All right. So, okay, Brett, we're going to be doing our second giveaway, and let us know when you are ready. So,
I am always ready, man.
that's right, brother.
Got to do the cheesy
Yeah.
80s game show music.
That's right. I love it, man.
All right. And the winner of the book is Chrissy.
Oh, Chrissy. Nice.
Woohoo, Chrissy.
Yeah. Chrissy
All
from
right.
Canada.
Chrissy from Canada.
Canada Chrissy.
Going international. We have someone from
Yeah,
Australia, Canada.
Yeah, we have a big international show.
And
tonight.
I'm not going to
Well,
attempt to say her last
Chrissy,
name. 'cause-
your name is
yeah.
on this book now. That's all right. You'll send me the info later
Yeah, Chrissy, we'll get you in touch with her. Most
so that I can
definitely.
post it to her.
Yeah, yeah.
Chrissy's
Congratulations,
amazing.
Chrissy. Yeah,
You'll like her.
she's on the show all the time. It's amazing. She's great. Great guys. So Brett, what we have some other stuff that we're doing on the show here. And so we're going to be celebrating birthdays coming up here in a minute. And then we also have a great clip for you on a comedy show that we're going to be highlighting. And so, Brett, why don't we jump into our birthdays right now, man?
Let's do it. We are celebrating sober birthdays for the month of January. And if you guys want to be included on this list, I believe JR has a post on Facebook. And we also have a Google form set up. So if you are celebrating a sober birthday and you want to be a part of it, find one of those. I think we'll have the link for that will be in the description / show notes. So without further ado, here is the January sober birthday video.
All right, guys. So happy birthday for everybody who is celebrating sober birthdays for the month of January. And we're so happy that you guys have submitted. And we also want to remind you that if you would like to get on our birthday list, you can now go to our website and you can submit your birthday information. That is now live for us. Or if you would also like to go to my website, you can go over to mine. I have a link on my website where you can submit to the same list. So we have multiple areas for you to do that, and we will also have the link for that in the show notes, so that if you guys are unsure where to go, you will be able to click on that link, either on your streaming app for your podcast, or if you're on YouTube watching this, just click on the show description and it will drop down, and we have all of our links there for you. And also, if you're on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Really important that you do that. We had almost 300 subscribers sign up for our YouTube channel last week, and we would like to get a few more. So just go ahead and remember to hit that subscribe button for us, and it will really help us out. Give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying these videos. That also helps out our ratings and allows other people to find these videos so that they can join in the conversation and hopefully join one of our live streams. So really important stuff going on here too, guys. So Brett, why don't you tell us a little bit about the video that we have coming up for the comedy show?
Sure. So we have another show that's going to be joining the lineup of live shows on the Recovery Revolution Facebook page. It's going to be with JD Dilks, and the name of that show is Laughter is a Drug. So I got a little promo that he sent us earlier in the week, and I'm going to go ahead and play that for us.
It was fucking tequila that got me on my knees, like in more way than one. You know what I mean? Like it was bad. Like it was not good. Like it is never a good one.
40 and blotted it up real small and crumpled it up and ran up to meet this guy while I had shitty pants on and ripped him off $20.
Hit up my friend Horse. If you have a friend named Horse and you ask for painkillers,
you're gonna get duped.
I got some heroin.
All right, and if you want to catch this show, it's going to be posted on the Recovery Revolution website on Facebook, and that is Recovery Revolution 100 on Facebook if you're looking for the group, and we will have those videos up there for you, and they will be starting their YouTube channels here probably pretty soon, so we'll have more information about where you can find those on YouTube if you're one of our YouTube viewers or followers, and we really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. So so B, it's amazing to have you on the show, and your story is so compelling, and it's so wonderful to talk about this super important topic today. Just mental health in general. A lot of times we focus on the addiction side of mental health, but I think it's so important to understand that along with the addiction, other mental health disorders can arise. And it's not only that, people are born, well, I mean, I guess they are born with the disorder, but it doesn't necessarily come up in life. But once they have that addiction and they go through that addiction cycle, a lot of times it can trigger and bring up another disorder that has been, dormant and was not diagnosed prior to starting your cycle of addiction. So
100%, and the other way too. Sometimes people turn to addiction because their quality of life, is lowered so much because of, undiagnosed mental health issues or traumas and things like that. And it's, addiction becomes a way of coping.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not all mental health disorders or mental illnesses are, you're not born with all of them. Some of them are from damage that are done during life. There's different ones. And like she said, talking about mental health and mental health disorders are different things. But, they're both very important topics. One's more of like a daily check-in, you're not doing, things that make you well, like whole wellness, and that's more of the mental health part of it. Mental health disorders, you have to pay attention to your daily mental health to manage those symptoms as well. So they're very intertwined.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, there's one more thing. I don't know what I've done with it. It was up here somewhere. But now that I think of it, one of the things that was life-changing for me in the early days of my mental illness was actually mood charting. So, you can download some mood charts online. I'll be updating one to my website soon for free that people can download, one that I created and used. But basically charting symptoms, like your level of mood on a scale of like 1 to 3, high or low, but also charting things like, did I use drugs today? Did I take my medication? Did I have relationship conflict? If you're a woman, did I have a period? Where am I at with my menstrual cycle? Did I have coffee today? Or, things like that. And then that way you can look, if you chart over a 6-month period, you will be able to see patterns. And it's also very helpful information that you can then hand to your doctor or your mental health professional, and it communicates vital information that they will find super helpful that you will maybe otherwise forget to tell them, because when you see them, you're just thinking about the recent past, whereas that gives them a pretty good summary of how you've been feeling over a month or a few months. And that can, I guess, drastically increase your recovery time.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different things that we can do that, focus on the idea that we have to maintain our personal well-being, our mental well-being, and our bodies, and all of these things that go in that we neglected when we were in that stage of addiction, and we were just throwing it all out the window and having to relearn about ourselves. I think it's probably the hardest struggle that I had to deal with was, the idea that I can now be somebody that's productive, and I don't have any limitations to what I can do in the world. Because as an addict, I always put limitations on myself. I was content with being an addict. I was like, well, that's what it's going to sum up for me. And coming into recovery, I learned relatively quickly that I don't have limitations on myself anymore. And I don't have to live by these limitations by my own self-ethos and my own beliefs inside of me, because I have the ability to change those. And it doesn't have to dictate who I am. One of the great sayings that I love is, it doesn't matter who you are when you fall down. What matters is who you can become when you get back up. And all of us have this ability now to change our lives and to change ourselves for the better.
I think it's, that's a great point. And sometimes you feel like, am I going to be the one that can't do this? Am I going to be the one that can't do better and, change things? And I think that's a fear, that for a long time I just didn't feel like I could succeed or thrive. So it was easier not to try, because it was like more devastating to not achieve or not do these things. So it was part of the
Well, if you don't try, you can't fail.
Of course.
Well, that's the mindset that you think. If you don't try, you can't fail. But in actual fact, if your greatest fear is failing, then not trying guarantees your worst fear will come true.
Right.
100%.
And I would much rather aim for the stars and miss than aim for the gutter and succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, well,
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
And Carl was going to say the same thing.
Oh my gosh. I was just going to say, man, it's so good it's so refreshing to have you on the show today, and, just listening to you and Ashley go through your dialogue and everything, and the conversation that you guys had, and then opening up to talking about feelings today, and to talk about all of these so important things that we have going on that a lot of us struggle with, and a lot of us have a hard time talking about, because we're afraid of what other people might think of us, And so it's been so wonderful to have you on the show today.
And I'm going to remember
it's been wonderful.
I'm going to remember what you said, one smile, one how are you doing can save a life. And I hope others listen to that too, because that's so important.
Yeah.
And if you want to help someone with a mental illness, shut up and listen. That's my best advice. Just listen.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little plug for my podcast. So we actually covered this in one of my episodes. And if you guys would like to go back, I did talk to Yusuf Eminawi, who is a clinical psychologist, and he is one of the first people I met when I came into the recovery industry, and he was my clinical supervisor. And so we talked about how to reach people when they're in that crisis mode. What does that feel like for them? And what does that feel like for the person that's on the receiving end of seeing somebody go through that process, and the best way to communicate with them, and the best, help that we can get them. So if you guys want to check that out on my podcast, the Drunken Worm podcast, that would be episode number 3. But it's a great resource to learn about how to reach out to people who are in a crisis mode.
This is my niece. Aww. She's just walked in to crash the show. No. She's so good. She's so cute. We'll have to get her to join the show. Put the dog bowl down. Oh, there she goes. Say hi. Say hi to everyone. She's like, what?
Now we've got the guys outnumbered.
No. Uh-oh. And that concludes the show for tonight. No, just kidding.
Yeah, they're on TV.
Yeah. So, well, B, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and we definitely want to thank you for taking the time today, all the way from Australia, and coming out and working with us, and talking about mental health and talking about recovery, and
She's just
all
grabbing
the
everything.
things that go
I'll put you
along
down,
with
sweet.
that.
She's just grabbed my bikini. She's like, "We going for a swim, Auntie?"
Yeah, there you go. She's ready.
Is it cold there?
Yeah. No, it's summer, so it's like we said it before. It's like 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. So she's definitely. Ashley, how
so she's
how
like, "Yeah,
cold
it's
or warm
time."
is it there?
I think it's probably like 80 today.
80?
Yeah, it's probably like 75 right now.
Poor thing.
We have the Daytona 500 here this weekend. I think it's like the 50th anniversary, so there's a lot of people in
that's gonna
town.
be big. Yeah, definitely. One of the days that you're going to stay to the local only area.
Oh, there's people in the local area.
Dang.
Too.
So, all right, guys. Well, that's a pretty good show for tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about, Brett, what did we have? Oh, yes, we need to talk a little bit about our new voice messaging system. So if you guys would like to send us a message and let us know how we're doing, please send us a voice message at speaktous.us/RRL, and that will take you over to a little website where you can include a voice message which is 90 seconds long, and it will come over to the show. And we are now wanting to actually get your input, guys, so please follow through with that. We'll have a link for that in the show notes as well, Brett. I didn't put that in the paper I sent you, but we'll definitely need to slide that in there. And if you guys want to do that, because pretty soon we're going to be starting to use some of your comments and stuff during the live show, and use little sound bites and stuff from that. So that'll be great to hear the feedback. And we're also going to have a new segment coming up where we're going to be using this voice message system. And I'm not going to give any spoilers about it, but I think it's going to be really popular. And we're going to be able to answer some questions with industry professionals, your questions that you might have if you have struggles and stuff. So yeah, but it's been a great show. Brett, how are you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. My computer's not feeling as good because it was locking up and I couldn't get that graphic to go away. But that's okay. We're getting towards the end, so technical difficulties. Ashley did remind me though that we are looking for more show sponsors. So if you are interested in sponsoring an episode, you can contact us on the Facebook page, or you can email any one of us with our first name at recovery-revolution.org.
Yes. And we have those email addresses listed in the show notes as well. And they're easily clickable so that you can get in touch with us, and it should open up an email service provider for you, and you can just start typing and let us know if you have any questions or show suggestions or sponsorship suggestions, or if you would like to be a sponsor for the show. That would be great as well. And she is a climber. That is fantastic.
Not my laptop.
And buy the book, because we're going to have a reading and we're going to talk about it. I don't know how, but we're going to have a group or something. So buy the book so we can.
Well, I have some readings as well of my book on my YouTube channel. So there's a bunch of stuff as well if you check out like my socials and my YouTube channels as well. So she's like, no.
She's like, no. Down for the count. So,
it looks comfy.
Right, do you have any closing notes for us, man?
I think we got everything. Ashley, did we forget anything? JR's in the comments. Did we forget anything, man?
I'm sure we
forgot.
I
wanted to show you guys one thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to show you guys one thing real quick. This is what I've been working on actually the last few days. This is a drawing for a friend of mine that struggles with addiction. So I just thought I would show it to you guys because that's my interpretation of what addiction is kind of like. Like the tentacles coming out, like it's kind of a parasite that once it gets inside of you, it's hard to get out. And then these are fishing hooks that you probably can't see, but they are sort of pulling this eye apart which sort of is a metaphor for, I guess, the pain that you have to endure to really look at yourself, you know, and open your eyes to kind of what you're going through to, you know, eradicate that type of addiction. And then the fishing lines are kind of what anchors you to, you know, sobriety and kind of getting better. So yeah, that's something I've been working on for a friend, but I just wanted to share that because it's addiction related.
It's awesome. I wish I was artistic. I can't draw a stick figure, but I can do math. I'm good at that. But that's amazing.
Sorry, there was a spider.
Thank you.
Had to get it. Was I on for that one? Brett, did you go full screen when I was smashing the spider?
I should have. I missed that opportunity. If my computer wasn't being so laggy right now, I definitely would have soloed you for that spider
Thank you.
smash.
I don't think you guys have anything on the Australian spiders.
No,
so.
we don't. And I would appreciate it if we could change the topic now because I am terrified of spiders. It was a small one, but I smashed the heck out of it. All spiders need to die.
Carl, how did that spider make you feel?
Made me feel great. Empowered.
Squishing it probably did.
Yeah, the Australian spiders definitely do not have anything on the spiders here in the U.S. because I've seen pictures, and they are flippin' terrifying. Like I'm gonna stay in a high-rise building, and hopefully they can't climb that high.
Yeah, I think they can climb, man.
Shh, don't
Yeah.
What, dude? Why do you have to say stuff like that, man? I was so juiced to go to Australia, and now it's like I'll live on a boat.
What is
See,
that
do they
statistic?
have boats I can
Well, I
sail
mean,
out
there's
there?
the stingrays, the sharks, the
don't mind
jellyfish,
those.
the
I
box
scuba dive.
jellyfish.
What is that
So-
statistic about you swallow so many spiders in your lifetime when you're
I was
sleeping?
thinking of the same thing. I don't know.
thank
Look
you.
that up.
It's like
Okay.
3 or 3 a year or something.
Yeah, I don't mind swallowing them. I just don't like waking up with them on me.
Me and Brett's minds go to the same place.
Google says you swallow an average of 20 spiders in your lifetime.
That's BS. I will that is flus. That's fake news.
You gonna fight with Google?
Yes, I am. Dang it.
I don't know that you're gonna win.
Shh.
I don't know. I don't know.
I have the power to win.
They need to make a movie about that. That sounds like a bit like a movie storyline right now.
It's awful. And you know the dead one is up here. Like it's sitting on my sound foam smushed, but all of its legs are like up like this. And I'm like, ugh, dang.
It's watching you in its death.
Yeah. Well, it was struggling for a moment and I just let it go.
Yeah, there's nothing more satisfying than when like you get we use like a boot or like a shoe and you just like smack it, and there's nothing more satisfying than that the sound of just like slapping a spider and just
Oh
squishing
no,
it.
that's awful. I can't even imagine like the juice coming out. It's disgusting.
Great show, everybody.
Spiders
On
don't
that
bother
note,
me.
We want to thank everybody for listening tonight. Oh, we always get the best bits at the end, don't we, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Are you afraid of
Alrighty.
snakes?
No, I actually the spiders are the okay. So I have a phobia of dogs also, and that was due to I have PTSD around dogs because when I was a child, there was an adult in my life that used to walk me in a stroller, whose name starts with an M and ends with an M, and they would they would walk me in, and the stroller would sit there while she talked to one of our neighbors. And yeah, sorry, Mom. She would sit there and talk to one of our neighbors, and they had this little dog that was like kind of like at the same level that I was in the stroller, and the dog would like go bonkers, barking and barking and barking. And so I actually have a fear of barking dogs, not necessarily dogs that are loose on the street. If they're not barking, then I'm usually like pretty okay with them. But even if they're confined and they're barking, our neighbor has these horrid dogs that bark at everything at all times during the day, and I have to park right next to their run. So I usually wear headphones when I get out of my car, and I have really loud music turned up in them.
I'm afraid of squirrels.
What?
I was attacked by a
Right.
squirrel when
I've
I was
only
a
seen
kid.
one squirrel.
Yeah, my teacher in kindergarten told us that if a squirrel's nice, it means they have rabies. So if they try to come close to you, you should be worried because they have rabies. And it was just like, I mean, traumatizing in a way. Like I know that that's not true 100%. I know that if you feed them, they're going to come close. But still, it's just, I mean, it's ingrained. Terrified.
Squirrels fly too. That's terrifying.
Don't know.
We don't have squirrels. We
I
have
might
like
move there.
possums, which are maybe the similar, but they're massive. But I got attacked by a pelican when I was a little kid, so I'm kind of scared of pelicans. I don't know why my parents thought it would be a good idea to get us to feed bacon to pelicans, but yeah, it just decided to eat like my whole arm.
What's the difference between a stork and a pelican? Maybe a pelican holds more water in its mouth. I think a stork has more.
Pelicans are the ones like with the big
with the big like thing under there. Yeah, those are.
Yeah, and I
terrifying.
think storks are they got like more like longer legs.
Yeah.
I think birds in general are just like scary.
Well, you
yeah,
don't
they got like
Jurassic
diseases.
Park
I can't
movie,
touch
then.
feathers.
Have you seen?
I watch this fascinating. No, but
Yeah.
I watched this fascinating documentary where they think that like more than 60% of dinosaurs were birds, that they had feathers, not scales.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they definitely think they like came
because then now they all have feathers, right? I mean, birds. Not
Yeah, no,
scales.
but they think that like not the T-Rex specifically, but those types of dinosaurs they think had feathers because they found like skeletons and stuff, in rock and mud, and they have like feathers on them.
Sorry,
birds are scary. What was that Alfred Hitchcock thing too? Like black and white. It's even scary in black and white, and things aren't normally scary in black and white.
Yeah. Oh, the birds. That's a terrifying movie. So. All right, guys. Well, is that our show, Brett? Are we?
I think so.
Yeah. All right.
Unless you guys want to talk about other scary animals or something.
Oh, I'm good.
I would like to sleep tonight.
Yeah, me too.
I got 7 hours.
Oh yeah, it's like 2:00 in the afternoon for me, so my day's just getting started.
We could go all day.
I got time.
Right. I guess I need to load up a couple like horror sound effects if we're gonna continue this theme.
Yeah, no creepy sound effects. So, all right, Brett, why don't you take us home, buddy?
I would love to take us home. Thank you, everyone, for watching tonight's live broadcast. Thank you again to Bipolar Barbie for coming on tonight, or I guess today for you. We're still on Thursday over here in the States. You're about to start your weekend. If you guys would like more information about the show, go to recovery-revolution.org/live. You can watch the past videos. You can watch our current live video on that page. And there's also contact information for us, as well as the birthday sign up that Carl mentioned earlier. So be sure to check that out for all information that pertains to the live show. And remember, guys, progress, not perfection.